Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Thursday, May the 28th. And welcome to our commentary. Before we get to my regular material, I just wanted to say that there is something going around about a deal with Iran for 60 days, something like that going around. The Secretary of Treasury today was before the press, not necessarily talking about this, but he did answer a couple of questions. Look, it could be a deal. I'm not going to deny it, but at the same time, I have no confirmation of it. I mean, I have no way of saying yes, it is a deal. It's reports in the media, and that's all we have right now. And frankly, with respect to this Iran situation, until I see President Trump on national TV saying we have a deal and I've approved it, I think everything else is just a lot of speculation, and in some cases, bad leaks or whatever you want to call it. But I'm not going to say anything until I actually see President Trump confirm it. President Trump has been very clear that the uranium has to be moved, that there are no nuclear weapons, and that the straits have to open. So I think that's pretty clear what he's saying. If they can get a deal like that, then I'm sure he'll sign it. But for the moment, all we have is a story. Interesting story. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But until I see President Trump on TV announcing it, I'm gonna wait for that to happen. The other quick story that I wanted to touch on, Jill Biden, Mrs. Biden, was on TV. I guess she's got a book that she's you know presenting, or he doing these book tours that these authors do. And she was talking about what happened the night of the famous Biden Trump debate, where apparently she was watching this and she couldn't believe how bad President Biden looked. Basically, she said, I had never seen him like that before, have never seen him like that since. And she even said that she thought he was having a stroke. Look, I'm going to give here the wife a little bit of slack. I'm not going to beat up the wife of the president, but it's obvious to me that this thing with Joe Biden was way beyond what we saw that night on the debate. What we saw that night on the debate was kind of like the climax of this. But the reality is that this had been building up. Anybody watching President Biden on TV, or the way he was moving around and the way they were protecting him, he was not doing well. And I don't say that in any vindictive fashion, because after all, he is the commander in chief, or he was the commander in chief, and that the idea that the man who can push a nuclear button would be like that is pretty scary, as far as I'm concerned. I don't care what party we're talking about. So I just, as I said, I'm not going to beat up on the president's wife, but I do think a lot of people were covering this up, including some in the media who had to know that this was going on. We certainly could see it on TV. You don't have to be a genius. I mean, you could see it on TV every time he spoke. So, well, it's a shame that it ended that way, because it made President Biden look awfully bad that night when he debated Donald Trump. But a lot of people participated in this cover-up. I just don't know what else to say, and I wish the former President Biden good health and a long life, but nobody did him a favor by protecting him like that, and nobody did the country a favor by protecting him the way he was. So good luck to Mrs. Biden with her book. I hope she sells a lot of copies, but she had a lot to do with it too. She had a lot to do with it, to say the least. Well, let me get to my American Thinker post today, and that is a post about the Democrat primaries. We've been talking a lot about Paxton and Cornyn and Republican primaries, but some interesting things are happening in Democrat primaries too. And two of them are extremely important. One right here in Texas, where Representative Al Green, if you're not familiar with who he is, he's the fellow who would always put on a show every time that President Trump spoke. He was screaming and, holding these placards about, impeaching President Trump and all of that. Well, he went down. He went down in a Democrat primary. And he went down to a younger candidate who, not just a question of age, but he's certainly a little even more liberal than Mr. Green. So there you see a liberal Democrat being replaced by someone even more liberal in a Democrat primary. And something similar to that is happening in New York. They have a primary, I believe, in June. And Representative Dan Goldman, who's about as anti-Trump as you can get. I mean, you cannot find a more critical House member, a more critical House member of President Trump. And he, right now, is very likely going to go down too. Very likely going to go down in his upcoming primary. He's going to be losing by all the press accounts. He's going to be losing to somebody like an AOC type candidate. Remember, this is how AOC got to the House, by defeating a so-called moderate Democrat. And we've seen a lot of those in these primaries. So while it is true that you're seeing a Republican Party that is becoming more and more pro-Trump. In other words, this is a Trump Republican Party without any question. That is true. What is also true is that the Democrat Party is becoming more and more liberal, and not just liberal, but very left of center. And these two examples I just gave you, Al Green in Texas, he did go down, and Dan Goldman in New York, who's very likely going to go down. These are examples of what's happening to the Democrat Party. They are moving further and further to the left. Now, in many of these districts, it's not going to matter, because these are Democrat districts that the Democrats are going to win. That's what happened with AOC. But in some districts, once you start getting or taking into consideration some of the redistricting that has gone on, you could be putting the Democrat Party at a disadvantage in some kind of a more competitive district if they keep nominating these kinds of candidates. So we will see how that unfolds. Now, as far as Paxton versus Cornyn, I will repeat, I said it before, just in the interest of full disclosure, I voted for Senator Cornyn. I felt that he was a safer choice. And what I mean by that is, you have a midterm election. Those midterm elections tend to be nasty toward the president of whatever party. It's happened to both sides. And I thought that Cornyn would be a safer choice, because if you're going to be in a midterm, what you want to do is you want to consolidate or maintain what you have, like Texas, and concentrate and spend money on the things you're trying to pick up, like Michigan or Georgia, two cases where the Republicans have a very good chance of pickups. And you also want to defend North Carolina, which is right now pointing Democrat, and you want to defend Maine, which is this is where that crazy Democrat is running for the Senate. I think eventually they're going to reelect Susan Collins, but she's going to need money to get reelected up there. So that was my whole point for supporting Cornyn. It wasn't that I have something against Paxton. I think he's been an excellent attorney general. I just felt that Cornyn would be an easier choice. Someone who's won before, someone with a conservative track record, and I just thought it would be easier on the party, given the midterm election history, if we didn't have to worry about being competitive in Texas or having to spend money to keep Texas. So that was my reasoning. Obviously, it didn't work out. It didn't work out. I was on the wrong side of that one. And Paxton is now going to be the nominee, and I plan to vote for him. I plan to support Mr. Paxton. I hope he becomes the next senator of Texas. Now, they're running against a very interesting Democrat named James Talarico, who has quite a video history of a lot of things that he said that I don't think will play well here. And I've never understood why a politician, and I was talking about this with Bill Katz. If you listen to our previous video, you'll see that we got into this. Why would a politician start talking or giving speeches about religion to this extent? I mean, I can understand being a Christian and saying that you're a Christian and that your faith is important to you. That's fine. That's within the boundaries. But when you start talking about what the angel meant to tell Mary when he was announcing that she was going to be the mother of Jesus, or when you get into how many genders or God is non-binary. And I just think that's way beyond what most people think. And that's way beyond what a politician normally talks about. So I think this fellow Talarico, he has a lot of explaining to do. Has a lot of explaining to do because I just don't think those comments that he's made about Mary and the baby, and also the comments about six genders and all that kind of stuff. I don't think that's going to play well in Texas, particularly in some of the more conservative areas of the state. So I think Cornyn is going to win, and that's about as much as I'll say about that. I plan to vote for him. By the way, I think Paxton. I mean, excuse me, Paxton is going to win, and I plan to vote for him. By the way, I think Paxton has been an excellent attorney general. I have praised him over and over and over again. And that was one of the reasons why I was hoping he would stay as attorney general or maybe look at the governor's race in a few years. Because he's done such a great job here in Texas. I actually thought he would be more valuable as attorney general or perhaps even a governor of Texas down the road. But it's not going to be that way. He will very likely be our next senator, and I will be voting for Ken Paxton in his campaign for the U.S. Senate. I do want to congratulate John Cornyn for a great career. He's been a very good man, very conservative over the years. And I wish there had been a better way to say goodbye to John Cornyn than to have him lose by 28 points. But sometimes life can be hard. Life can be very harsh sometimes, particularly when it comes to politics. Well, if you're familiar with James Bond books or movies, you may remember the name of Ian Fleming. Well, Ian Fleming is the author of the James Bond books that eventually became movies. I think most people probably remember James Bond more from movies than from books. I certainly do. I don't recall reading any of the books, but I do recall watching many of the movies. But anyway, Ian Fleming, the man who invented James Bond, was born on this day in 1910. He passed away very young in 1964, but he certainly left a lot of books that became movies with Secret Agent James Bond. So Ian Fleming, born in England, and I think also passed away in England. Young man, 54 when he passed away. I'm not sure why he died so young. Thank you for listening. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye, everybody.